It was 2:17 a.m. in Seattle. Rain fell in thin silver lines, soft but relentless, turning the pavement into a mirror of broken lights. The city was quiet in that strange way only early morning can be, when even the noise seems tired. Daniel stood on the edge of Aurora Bridge, staring into the dark water below. 34 years old. Recently laid off from a tech company that once promised him a future. Divorced 6 months ago. No kids. No savings left. Alone, the cold wind bit through his jacket, but he barely felt it. His mind was louder than the traffic that occasionally hummed past behind him. Asterisk, you failed. You weren't enough. You tried, and it still wasn't enough. Asterisk. His phone buzzed. A bank notification. Insufficient funds. Low. The kind of laugh that comes from exhaustion, from a man who has run out of reasons to fight. This is it, he whispered into the rain. He stepped closer to the edge. The water below looked endless. Finally, but then he heard it. The faint click of claws against wet concrete. Slow, careful, hesitant. He felt something cold and damp press against his hand. A nose. He turned. A stray dog stood beside him. Golden fur, once bright, but now matted with dirt and rain. Thin ribs, bizzle beneath soaked skin. One ear torn, an old scar cut across its snout. The kind that told a story of fights survived. The dog didn't bark. It didn't whine. It simply sat down beside him. Close enough that their shoulders touched. Daniel wiped his tears angrily. Go away. The dog didn't move. Instead, it leaned slightly into him, not forcefully, just enough that he could feel the warmth, as if saying, asterisk if you fall. Primera, fai, ele. A Carpacet headlight swept across them. For a second, the world was illuminated. Daniel, shaking and broken, and the dog, steady and watchful. Daniel looked at it. You don't even know me. The dog lifted one muddy paw and placed it gently on his shoe, and something inside Daniel, something hardened by months of silence, cracked open. He stepped down from the ledge, his knees buckled. He collapsed onto the sidewalk and sobbed, not because life was fixed, not because everything suddenly made sense, but because for the first time in months, someone stayed. He sat there for nearly 20 minutes. The dog never left his side. When Daniel finally stood, he didn't make a grand decision. He didn't promise to start over. He just said quietly, "You're coming with me." The dog followed without hesitation. Daniel's apartment was small, dishes in the sink, curtains always half closed. He dried the dog with an old towel. The dog just watched him with tired but trusting eyes. You look like you've been through it too, Daniel muttered. He found an old bowl, filled it with water. The dog drank slowly, like it wasn't sure there would be more later. Daniel opened the fridge. Half a sandwich, some leftover chicken. He placed it on a plate. The dog didn't lunge at it. It looked up first, as if asking permission. Daniel nodded. Yeah, it's yours. That night, the dog slept curled beside Daniel's couch. Not on the couch, beside it. Got in. The next morning, sunlight crept through the blinds. Daniel hadn't slept well in months, but when he woke up, something was different. The dog was sitting by the door, waiting. Its tail thumped gently when Daniel stirred. You wanna walk? The tail wagged harder. Daniel hadn't had a reason to leave the apartment in days. Now he did. They walked through damp sidewalks and quiet streets. Daniel noticed things he hadn't in weeks. The smell of coffee from a nearby cafe, the sound of birds, the way the sky slowly brightened. The dog stayed close. Always close. Guess I should name you, Daniel said. He thought about that moment on the bridge, about how close he had been to drifting away. Anchor, he decided. Yeah, Anchor. The dog wagged his tail as if approving. Days turned into weeks. Daniel couldn't stay in bed all day anymore. Anchor needed food, walks, care. Responsibility crept back into his life, not as a burden, but as something steady. He applied for jobs again. Rejections still came. But they didn't hit the same. Because every time he came home, Anchor greeted him like he had won something. Tail wagging, a-less, bright, as if surviving one more day was enough. Daniel found part-time work at a local hardware store, stocking shelves, helping customers. It was honest work. He started shaving again, started making eye contact, started smiling at strangers. People noticed. "You've got a good energy," one elderly customer told him. Daniel almost laughed. If only she knew. One afternoon, a woman walked into the store holding her phone. "Is that your dog tied up outside?" she asked. Daniel glanced out the window. Anchor sat patiently. "Yeah, that's Anchor." The woman's eyes widened. "Oh my gosh, that's the Bridge dog." Daniel blinked. "The what?" She showed him her phone. A traffic camera photo, grainy, blurred by rain, but unmistakable. A man on the edge of the bridge. A dog sitting beside him. The caption read, "Sometimes angels don't have wings." The image had spread across social media. Thousands of shares, comments from strangers who had driven by that night and wondered what happened. Speculation. Prayers. Hope. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Whispered. A local animal rescue had seen the photo too. They offered free medical care for Anchor. Turns out, Anchor had a microchip, long inactive. His previous owner had passed away 2 years earlier. No family claimed him. "He chose you," the rescue volunteer said gently. Daniel swallowed hard. "I think we chose each other." Anchor needed minor surgery. Daniel sat beside him at the clinic. "You're stuck with me, okay?" he murmured. Anchor licked his hand. Recovery wasn't instant, but neither was Daniel's. They healed slowly. Together. A small publisher reached out months later. "Would you consider writing about that night?" Daniel hesitated. He wasn't a writer, but he started typing anyway. About the rain, the ledge, the pour on his shoe. About how sometimes rescue doesn't look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a quiet presence that refuses to leave. The book didn't make him rich, but letters began arriving. From veterans, from teenagers, from parents, from people who had stood on their own bridges. "Your story made me step down," one message read. Daniel cried when he read that, not from sadness, but from understanding. Pain shared becomes lighter. 1 year later, Daniel returned to the bridge, this time in daylight. Anchor walked beside him, healthy and strong. Cars rushed past. The water below still looked deep, but it no longer called his name. Daniel knelt down and wrapped his arms around Anchor. "You saved me," he whispered. Anchor licked his cheek. Maybe the dog didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. Daniel didn't become famous. He didn't become wealthy. He still had bills. He still had hard days. But now, when the dark thoughts crept in, he wasn't alone in the silence. There was the sound of paws on the floor, the weight of a head resting on his knee. The quiet reminder. Asterisk. Stay. Asterisk. Because sometimes the smallest presence can interrupt the darkest decision. Sometimes salvation doesn't shout. Sometimes it simply sits beside you and refuses to leave. So, who or what has quietly stayed beside you when you were ready to give up? And if you're standing on your own bridge tonight, please remember that your anchor might be closer than you think. There is always hope, and there are people who want to help. If you're struggling, please reach out. You can connect with people who can support you by calling or texting 988 anytime in the US and Canada. In the UK, you can call 111. These services are free, confidential, and available 24/7. Your story isn't over. Thank you for listening.